Hi, everybody. Hopefully the turkey sandwiches haven't put you to sleep, and some people are back from lunch. I always manage to draw the good slot. So, my name is Scott Boys. I'm from MPX International. We are probably the only company here that we could truly say is internationally focused. Let me go quick here. I want to get rid of the legal stuff. I'm just going to give you a little bit of history. We ran a business in the United States, so we've been here, done that. We had dispensaries in Arizona. We had dispensaries in Massachusetts. We were building out dispensaries in Maryland. We had grow operations in Arizona, in Massachusetts, and in Nevada, and we were moving into California when we decided that our U.S. assets were valuable, and acquiring new ones was going to be too expensive. So the board decided that they needed to do a transformational transaction, and we merged the company with Ianthus in February of this year. We had already been scouting around a little bit into the international markets. And can't see over this. This is made for tall guys. We had already been scouting around the international markets. And we see the real future of this industry not to be in Canada. I'm from Toronto. And the company, while it's based in Canada, really now has a totally international focus. We sold the U.S. assets for Thank you. We sold the U.S. assets for $835 million. We had raised 110, sold it for $835 million, so we had a lot of happy investors. Most of them also got stock in MPXI, which is the trading symbol for our current company. And they're fully supportive of us as we went forward. We immediately went out and raised another $30 million to launch our international operations. So if we look at the marketplace internationally, Europe is going to be 1.5 times the size of the estimated North American market. And yeah, it's coming on slowly. It's emerging slowly. They're probably a couple of years behind us in terms of the medical market, but it's coming together, and now we're seeing the dominoes fall all around the world. There are about 35 countries so far that have introduced cannabis legislation, either for CBD or for full THC for the medical markets. They're a little bit away from the rec market, but the medical markets are emerging, and they're going to follow the cycle, as I talked about yesterday, going through a constrained medical market, then the medical market will loosen up. Eventually, you'll start to see some of the companies move into recreational. So what have we done so far? So the company was effectively started on February 6th when we did the merger of the U.S. assets with Ianthus. And since February, so in 9 short months, we're now operating or setting up operations in 6 countries. We've got 12,000 square feet of cultivation in Canada. Canada will be a significant chunk of our revenue this year, but less and less so as we move forward. We've got about $19 million in cash, and we're going to do about $91 million in revenue for our first full fiscal year, which will end September 30th of 2020. And we'll be profitable, we hope, in first calendar quarter of next year, and generate about $40 million in EBITDA for the 12 months ending September 30th. So I'm not going to go through all these slides because we only got 20 minutes, but in Europe, so far, and there's a little bit of a story here. We were at a conference in Geneva just before we did the transaction, and there was a company that did a presentation at the end of the day. Most of the people had gone home, and it was a little company that had a great marketing story. They were growing a variety of cannabis. In Switzerland, you can have 1% THC in your cannabis, so they call it cannabis light. And it's a big thing in Europe right now. They have it in Italy, they have it in Switzerland, and it's moving across some of the other countries. And they were selling pre-rolls and dried flower, but they had a real marketing panache. And we were so interested in the company that we bought it. The company is called Holy Weed, and they have access to about 4,000 retail stores in Switzerland. And they've just been approved for distribution of their product into Belgium and to Luxembourg. The company was small, just starting out, strapped for cash. So we bought that company, and now it's growing into something pretty spectacular. They also had a genetic. They had this 1% THC, very high CBD content, 22 to 25% CBD content in the biomass, and it's full spectrum. So we planted 70 hectares of this stuff in April of this year. 70 hectares for the rest of us is about 170 acres. It was all contract planted with Swiss farmers in Swiss soil. It's certified organic, and we are now converting it into CBD extract. It's got all the monikers for it. It's Swiss, organic, single source, full spectrum CBD oil. I'm not going to play that thing. We will process about 8,000 kilograms of this product this year. And I'm going to tell you in a minute, we're opening a store in London, but this type of product in London right now is selling for anywhere from 25 to 40 pounds per gram. So I'll let you do the math. 8,000 kilograms, cut it in half, say 20 pounds per kilogram. That's part of our revenue for the upcoming year. In fact, that would more than beat our revenue targets for the whole year. Now, to process this stuff, we're currently contracting out a little bit of the extraction and the distillation, but we've acquired a lab just outside of Nyon, Switzerland, and we're currently building it out to be one of the largest extraction facilities, certainly the largest cannabis extraction facility in Europe. And we'll be processing about 200 tons of biomass through this facility over the next 12 months. To try and establish a brand presence in Europe, we're opening up a CBD store. CBD, of course, is legal in the United Kingdom, or at least currently is, although they're trying to make it into a novel food requirement, but I'm sure we'll get around that. So we're opening our first store in Soho, in central London. It's branded Belief, and there we'll be selling the Holy Weed product, as well as a CBD product with the Belief brands, and carrying forward some US brands and introducing them to the London market. We'll probably open another one in Covent Garden in the spring, assuming this one gets off the ground. And we're also looking at opening Holy Weed branded stores, one in Zurich and one in Geneva. So that's the consumer market in Europe right now. It's totally CBD focused. It's probably hotter there than it is even here, and I know you've seen a lot of CBD presentations over the last day or so. The medical market in Europe is much less sophisticated, much more regulated than it is even here in the United States. So the management team is struggling a little bit to adjust the changes, although the market there is evolving pretty quickly. So if you look at, we acquired a letter of intent from the Malta enterprise. Malta was the first real country in the EU to formally approve medical cannabis and set up a regulatory environment for medical cannabis. They have issued letters of intent to 17 companies, I think, so far. We think about 10 of those will actually get off the ground. And when they give you the LOI, they also assign you a piece of property. You have to go out and get a building permit and get your design done and hire contractors and get the building built before you can actually get your final license. We decided to shortcut that a little bit. We actually went out and acquired a GMP-ready facility just outside the capital of Valletta in Malta, and we're currently configuring it out to do full extraction and distillation and packaging of EU GMP-grade medical products that we could ship throughout Europe and potentially throughout the world. We think it'll be 9 to 10 months before we can get the EU GMP certification, but it is the highest quality, highest level of GMP certification in the world. We can export virtually to any place once that's done. That facility should be up and running by third calendar quarter of next year. The products we'll be producing there include the Salus Biopharma brands, and we're selling those in Canada now. So, and a lot of those products we're working in conjunction with an Israeli company called Panexia. They have about 60 SKUs of pharma-grade products that we'll be able to replicate in Malta, and we're replicating them in Canada. Everything from suppositories, transdermal patches, sublingual tablets, all the various formats and delivery formats that you're seeing emerge in the medical markets globally. So we also acquired an asset in Canada. As I said, the Canadian operation will form about 35% of our revenue for this year, 35 to 40%, but will be less and less and less as we go on. So as I said yesterday, we are an international company with a Canadian asset, where most of the people you'll talk to are Canadian companies trying to expand into the international market. We have a 12,000 square foot grow in Peterborough, Ontario, just north of Toronto. We'll produce about $1 million a month in revenue from that facility. We also, in Canada, if you're a military vet or a policeman or any first responder and you've been injured on the job or you've suffered from PTSD and so forth, your cannabis medicine is insured. It's supported on a program by the government. There was a company in Canada that acted as an intermediary between the police association, the veterans associations, the licensed producers, and the insurance companies, and it was called Spartan Wellness. And we've acquired that company, and they'll do about 100,000 grams a month of delivery into the medical market between each month going forward. And their number of patients is increasing every month. The reason we talk about this is if you look at the wholesale market in Canada, a gram of flour now is anywhere between $3 and $5 Canadian. Where if you go into the medical market, you're getting a full pop of $8 to $9 for flour and up to $15 to $18 for concentrate. So it's a much higher margin business. We've also launched a learning network in Canada. It's a series of kiosks that we put into pharmacies. Keep in mind that the only place you could buy cannabis is through a licensed producer. So pharmacies and pain clinics and so forth can't actually sell it, but they want a piece of the action. So we're putting these kiosks into these facilities. Their customers can come in, get educated on cannabis, actually buy it online with a credit card and with ID that's all scanned through the system. And each of these stores will then be able to have their customers process orders and take a commission off the sale. The beauty of this is we can also go in and sell the product from the other licensed producers. So Aurora, Canopy, T-God, all the other Canadian producers, we could actually put their products on the system and take a commission from earning those. And we've also got some interest from some U.S. states about installing it in the U.S., so we'll see where that one goes. We hope to have 1,000 of these machines installed by the end of the year, each one of them generating revenue for us. We've also got a late-stage application in Australia. I'll touch on it quickly. We're building out a small facility in Tasmania to serve primarily the domestic market and the New Zealand market. We originally thought we'd service the Asian market from that as well, but that may not happen because things are happening more quickly in Asia in terms of legalizing it there. To feed all this operation, we needed a source of cheap biomass. And of course, we looked at Colombia, like everybody else has. We looked at South America. We went to the Maltese government and said, we want to import biomass into the facility we're building out in Malta. Where's the best place for us to get it where we're going to have a low cost of production? And of course, Malta, as you know, is an island off the coast of Tunisia, so they pointed to the African sub-Saharan continent. We happen to have a large investor base, international, including a large investor base from South Africa. So they said, come on down there. We went down, we scouted around. South Africa will afford us with GAP or GACP status production, which means we can import it into Europe as long as we meet that standard. And Malta said that was the country to go for. Everybody else has looked at Lesotho and Zimbabwe and other places. We wanted a place where they spoke English, where they had a codified legal system, where we felt the sovereign risk would be lower. And we've now partnered with a wine estate in the Stellenbosch region of South Africa. It's about 40 minutes from an airport, about 45 minutes outside of Cape Town, access to power, water, and a major highway. No infrastructure challenges for us whatsoever. And we're currently building out 1/2 hectare of greenhouse there. That's about 3/4 of an acre, about 1.25 acres for those of us who learned the old system. And it should be completed in about the second quarter of next year and is capable of producing all the biomass we'll need for the Maltese operation. And hopefully we'll be able to import it eventually into Canada. The Canadian government regulations do permit exports, although imports. They've been discouraging them so far, but we think that'll change in the not-too-distant future. We'll be able to produce dried flour at about a cost of about 30 cents US a gram, compared to the $2 to $3 that is currently costing most producers in Canada. So, I'm going to go quickly. I've got 4 minutes left, and I want to keep some time for questions. So we'll be producing about 90 million Canadian in revenue this year, so 70 some odd million US, which isn't bad for a company that's only been around for its first full year of operations. As I said, we'll be cash flow positive, hopefully in calendar Q1, and make about just under 40 million Canadian in EBITDA for our first year of operations. I'm going to go quick here. If you think about, now we currently have a stock price of about 50 cents Canadian, so 40 cents US, and a market cap of about $50 million US. So how many companies do you know they're going to generate $40 million of EBITDA and have a $50 million market cap? Part of it's because we're brand new. We just started to tell a story. We wanted all the pieces in place before we went out and gave an overview of our total strategy. But if you do the math at 5 or 6 times EBITDA as a target market cap, we think our stock has a pretty significant upside for investors. It's an early stage investment, but you're dealing with a management team who's done this before. We've built companies before. We've operated in probably the most challenging cannabis environment in the world, and that's the United States. We're used to multi-jurisdictional regulatory environments, and we're used to both the retail, we're used to the retail, the cultivation, and the extraction facilities. We've done it all before.